I know you dedicated the book to somebody you really, really care about. I've written a couple of books as well, and you only dedicate a book to somebody you really care about and really respect. And you dedicate the book to Jack Brisco. Why Jack?
Well, Jack, Jack was like my mentor. He was one of them. I mean, when you started in this territory here, Florida, basically this was an opportunity for people to come from all over the world that were in the wrestling business and work, and they would utilize it as almost like a vacation. So all the top talent came through here, even though they didn't stay here all the time in Florida. So you had an opportunity to rub shoulders with them. Well, Jack was here quite a bit, and to me, he was a stud. I mean, if I was going to pattern myself after anybody at that time in that era, it was going to be Jack Brisco. I mean, he had a great physique, but he wasn't a big bodybuilder kind of a guy. He was an athlete. He had a great background, which you can't all of a sudden, create. But at the same time, it gives them credentials and reality so far as, being able to handle himself in the ring. And then as a person, he was willing to share. And when he shared really things that were important to me, because you get a lot of stuff in your brain when you first start into this industry with what's right, what's wrong, what should I be doing, how should I do it, all of these different things. And there was a tendency for guys to mislead you. And I don't know if that was purposely to send you down the wrong track to keep you out of their way. But at the same time, as I developed through my career, Jack had put so much into me in time. And all of the things that he taught me, actually, I utilized over time periods, which I didn't even, sometimes at the very beginning when he explained it to me, I was kind of like, it was way over my head. I mean, being a brand new kid in the wrestling business, it was like I was a minnow in a sea of sharks. And, people don't understand that have never been in this industry, but one of the most important parts of being in the wrestling business is being able to get along. I mean, that dressing room time and psychology is so vital and so important. I mean, I used to, as I taught, I would teach guys, I said, hey, this is simple to me. Would you rather everybody likes you in that dressing room, or would you rather they were like afraid of you? And most of them would say, well, I don't know. I'm not sure. And I said, well, I'm going to tell you what you want. You want them to like you because they're going to be handling your body out there. They have the one option is the most misused phrase in professional wrestling is, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Because that's all they can say to you when they hurt you. I mean, when you've been kicked too hard in the head or in the gut or whatever, and you look at the guy and go, oh, man. And they go, oh, man, I'm sorry. What else can you ask of them? So that's the most misused phrase. But Jack was so essential in my career because he gave me insights. And really, there's no shortcut. There's no shortcut. You don't just start and all of a sudden you're great. You have to develop over experience and time. And basically what you find is some people will lead you, like I said, on a stray, and the other people will shoot straight with you the whole time. And only common sense going into your mind is what tells you, okay, well, that made sense. I mean, I had a lot of old timers tell me things to do, and I'd look at them and I'd just shake my head. Yeah, that sounds great. When I walk away from them, I'm going, there's no way I'm ever going to do that. And it's because that was really stupid. But Jack was the kind of guy that would say, hey, listen, this is what you do, kid. You go out and watch every match. You're in the beginning. Go out and see what the main event's doing. Go out and watch the first to the last match and see how the guys get over. See what they do to entertain the audience. See what they do to tell their story. And in those times, it was storytelling. It's different from nowadays. Wrestling has changed. It's a wheel. It's going forward. So you can't reverse it. But what it was back then was you had average 20 minutes a night in your match instead of 6. And you had to go out in front of an audience that has seen you 52 times a year. Every week you're in that same town. So they're seeing you repeatedly, and you had to be different. But you had to tell a story, good versus evil. and realistically take them on an emotional roller coaster of up and down until you really hooked them to the point where they were, regardless of whether they thought it was real or if they thought it was predetermined, they were into it. And they're yelling and screaming. So Jack was a vital part of my career.
Well, there's a story I've heard about Jack, and for the life of me, I can't remember who told me. But the story is that obviously Jack was a real stud at amateur wrestling, and some fan had pushed him too far one night. And after years of being in the business, he'd never attacked a fan. And then one day, this fan did whatever it was, and instead of wrestling, Jack ended up just tuning this guy one punch and knocked him out clean. And everyone was looking at Jack and saying, "After all your wrestling credentials, the first time you get in a fight with a fan, you hit them."
I was there.
Tell me the story then.
It was in Georgia. I mean, it was in Georgia, and I want to say Savannah, Georgia. And it sounds like the story I've always told, so I don't think we've talked before, but maybe you've heard it. But anyway, being a big, admirer of Jack's and everything, what the guy did was we were standing in an area watching the matches. And I was standing right beside Jack, and a guy comes up to Jack, and he says to Jack, "Hey, man, how do you get in this shit?" And Jack looks at him, and he goes, "What are you talking about?" He said, "Well, I want to be one of you guys. How do you get in this?" And Jack says, "Well, I guess you challenge a wrestler or whatever, and, if you can beat him, maybe you get an opportunity." So the guy looks at Jack. He says, "Well, I'm challenging you." And oh my God, my heart just lit up. I'm going, here's my hero who has stretched me time and time again. And now I'm going to watch him take this guy down, go behind, drive his face in the dirt and all this. And then all of a sudden invited the guy back in the back, and we went back behind where the curtain was. And he turned around, and the guy was looking at him, says, "Well, what do we do?" And he says, "We fight." And Jack threw a big punch and was on him, and boom, boom, and it was over. And I was so let down. I was so let down. Ole Anderson come around the corner, and Ole Anderson said, "What happened?" I said, "A guy just challenged Jack." And I said, but he didn't do a wrestling move. He didn't do a fireman carry. He didn't do anything that, he just punched him out. And Jack was left-handed. And there's a thing to being left-handed because there's not a lot of guys that are left-handed. And when you're in this business, you want to know everybody that's left-handed, because when they say they're getting ready to punch you, you don't want to turn your face the wrong way, because then all of a sudden, I was thinking you were right-handed, and I turned right into that one. So Jack being left-handed, he drilled him and down, and on the way down, he followed him, and that was the end of it. And I was expecting some big moves, and you may even a suplex on the concrete, but didn't happen. That's not the way it happened. So
I love how like a live knockout could be a disappointment, just depending on if it was Jack. Well,
it taught me a lesson. It taught me that it's not about how you win the fight. It's about winning the fight. People don't ask you, "Well, did you cheat to win?" Well, what do you call cheating? I didn't want to get hurt, so I won. Okay, well, did you sucker punch him? Well, yeah, I've learned to be the first one to throw the punch. That's usually the winner if you get the good punch in. But if it's not, you're in trouble. So anyway.
I encourage people as well. There's a good few fight stories in the book as well, Steve's book. I want to also ask, one of the two forwards was written by CM Punk, which I found really surprising. I hadn't realised that you'd gone to OVW. Were you just going there as like a guest trainer at times, or just like on a day-by-day basis? Or were you there full-time training the guys at any point?
No, I just went in as kind of a scout. I was an agent at the time. They later changed the title from agent to producer. But when I started for Vince, I was doing an agent job where I was, in charge of talent. And they would send us to OVW and sometimes to other guys' schools. Like up in New Jersey, where we found Kofi Kingston and a couple other places. We'd go look at the talent, and then we'd do kind of seminars for them. Because I started teaching in 1981, my first student was Tracy Smothers, and so I'd already developed an idea that I wanted to follow up on teaching and share my knowledge with younger people and at least give them some kind of insight. So